The kingdom of my divine will in the midst of creatures. Book of Heaven, Volume 30, Part 10. March 27th, 1932. Condition of assurance for the coming of the kingdom of the Fiat upon earth. The manifestations on the divine will shall be the fierce army of love, weapons and net to conquer the creature. I was feeling all immersed in the divine volition, and oh, how many thoughts crowded my mind! And its light that formed its waves, and one followed the other, and these waves converted into voice, into murmuring, into celestial music. But oh, how difficult it is to retain the language of that interminable light. While being inside of it, one seems to comprehend much. But as soon as the light withdraws, only a few tiny little drops are left, and the sweet and unforgettable and dear memory of having been in the light of the eternal Fiat. If blessed Jesus did not operate a miracle, lowering himself with a way more adaptable to the human nature, I would not have been able to say a thing. So I felt in my mind the picture of the kingdom of the divine will, and I wanted Jesus to tell me which ones were the conditions for it, so as to be certain of its coming. And my celestial teacher, visiting the little newborn of his will, told me, "My blessed daughter, the conditions, absolute, necessary, and of highest importance, which form the life and the nourishment in order to ensure the kingdom of my divine will, are to ask of the creature great sacrifices and prolixity of long sacrifice. Therefore, our goodness, by virtue of the sacrifice it asks, must give surprising graces to the one whom this sacrifice is asked, in such a way that to the creature, captivated by my love, by my gifts, and by my graces, the sacrifice that I ask of her will seem nothing, even though she knows that her life is ended. She shall no longer have any right over herself. All the rights shall belong to the one who is asking for her sacrifice. If she did not know all the intensity of the sacrifice that she is accepting, it would not have all the value, because the more one knows the greatness, the weight of the sacrifice, the more value is placed in it. Knowledge places the exact and complete value in the sacrifice. On the other hand, for one who does not know all the weight of a sacrifice, oh, how diminished are the value, the grace, the good that he must obtain. And then our love remains wounded. Our power feels powerless before a creature of whom we ask great sacrifices, making her know the weight to which she must submit. And she, only for love of us, and to fulfill our will, accepts everything. The prolixious sacrifice brings the prolixity of prayer, and oh, how our ears become all attention, and our gazes remain enraptured in seeing that, from within the stake of the sacrifice wanted by us, she prays. And what does she ask and want? what we ourselves want, that our will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Ah, if she could, she would turn heaven and earth upside down. She would want everything in her power to make everyone ask for what she wants, so that her sacrifice may obtain the intent and bring the fruit wanted by God. Our paternal goodness is such that it is impossible for us not to grant the purpose of a long sacrifice and of a prolixious prayer. These are the conditions on the part of creatures, and this we have done with you, and we want you to know it, because we do not give our things to the blind, who because of their blindness do not know the goods that are given to them, or those which are around them. Much less so to the mute, who because of their muteness do not have words to manifest our truths and our graces. The first thing we give is the knowledge of what we want to make of her, and then we give and do what we have disposed. Knowledge can be called the beginning, the void, the seed, in which to place the sacrifice and our things, and make the beautiful prayer arise, which debilitates us, enchains us with chains, with inseparable bonds, and makes us grant what she wants. More so since, our will being life and work, that gives life to everything and to everyone, in order to come to reign upon earth, it wanted, on the part of the human family, one life of creature at its disposal, which, without opposing, would remain at the mercy of its divine will, that it might do with her whatever it wants. This will serve it as prop and condition in order to ensure the kingdom on the part of creatures. Now come the conditions of assurance on the part of God. But to whom could I give them, if not to the one of whom I had asked the sacrifice? So my long prolixity in manifesting so many truths on my divine will, my prolonged speaking on its kingdom, and on the good it wants to do and must do, its long sorrow of about 6,000 years, for it wants to reign, and they rejected it. The many promises of goods, of happiness, of joy that it wants to give if they let it reign, have been nothing other than assurances that I have given to the creature of this kingdom of my Fiat. And these assurances were made and sealed inside the most beautiful thing, the most sacred, the most precious, that is, in the center of the stake of your sacrifice wanted by us. I can say that I never tire giving assurance. I speak, I return to speak, always with new ways, of new truths, new forms, surprising similes, always on my divine will. I would never have said so much if it were not certain that my kingdom is to have its dominion upon earth. Therefore it is almost impossible that a speaking of mine so prolixious, and a sacrifice of yours so continuous, would not have their longed-for fruits on the part of God and on the part of creatures. Therefore, continue your flight in that Fiat, which has the power to make its way, to knock down all difficulties, and by dint of love to make of its fiercest enemies its most faithful friends and defenders. Then he added, "My daughter, my conception, my birth, my hidden life, my gospel, the miracles, my pains, my tears, my blood that was shed, my death, united all together, formed an invincible army in order to accomplish my redemption. In the same way, all my manifestations on my divine will, from the first to the last word that I will speak, must serve to form the fierce army, all of love, of invincible strength, of irresistible light, of transforming love. They will cast a net around the creature, such that, if she wants to get out, she shall be caught inside. She shall remain so entangled as to be unable to get out of it. And while she tries to get out, my many manifestations about my will shall continue to assail her in such a way as to extend its net even more. So, seeing herself entangled, she shall get a taste for the so many beauties of truths, and shall feel happy of having been caught in the net of so many of my truths manifested. So they shall form the fulfillment of the kingdom of my divine will. Therefore, each of my manifestations on it is a weapon that must serve to complete a kingdom so holy. If I manifest it, and you do not say it, you shall cause the necessary weapons to be lacking. Therefore, be attentive. In addition to this, you must know that each word come out of the uncreated wisdom contains life, substance, work, instruction. So each manifested truth on our divine will shall have its own office in our kingdom. Many truths shall have the office of forming and growing the life of the divine will in the creature. Others shall occupy the office of nourishing it. Others shall act as teachers. Other truths shall have the office of defenders, in such a way that they shall place themselves around the creature like an army, so that no one will be able to touch her. See, then, the necessity of my speaking so prolixious, and of the many truths I have manifested. It was a kingdom that I had to form, which is not formed with few words, with few acts and offices. It takes so many of them. And each truth of mine has the virtue of occupying an office in order to maintain perfect order, perennial peace. It shall be the echo of heaven, and they shall swim inside a sea of graces, of happiness, under a sun that knows no clouds. The sky shall always be serene. My truths on my divine will shall be the only laws that shall dominate the creatures who will enter to live in this kingdom. Laws not of oppressions, but of love, which will sweetly make themselves loved, because in them they shall find the strength, the harmony, the happiness, the abundance of all goods. Therefore, courage, and always forward in my divine will. Fiat. April 2nd, 1932. How the divine power will put a limit to the evils of man, and shall say to him, enough up to here. How our Lord shows with facts that he wants to give the kingdom of his will. I am always back in the holy divine volition, nor can I do without, because it being life, the life is always felt. One feels the breath, the motion, the warmth. So it is with the divine will. As one feels it, so does one feel its life, its warmth, its motion, and everything it encloses, with only this difference, that one pays attention now to one thing which it encloses as life, and now to another. So I was thinking to myself, how can the creature ever return to be beautiful and holy as he came out of the creative hands of God, so as to realize the kingdom of his fiat in the midst of the human family? And my beloved Jesus, surprising me, told me, my daughter, all the works of our Supreme Being are perfect and complete. None of our works is by half. The creation is all complete and perfect. Even more, there are many things which are not of absolute necessity, but like luxury and pomp of our power, love, and magnificence. Should man alone, for whom all things were created, remain like an incomplete and imperfect work of our own, without the purpose for which he was created, which is for our fiat to have its kingdom in each creature? And this because he sinned and remained stained and degraded, which rendered him like a collapsing house, exposed to his thieves and enemies, as if our power were limited and did not have all the power to do what it wants, the way it wants it, and when it wants it. Whoever thinks that the kingdom of our will cannot come puts our very supreme power in doubt. We can do anything. We might lack the willingness, but when we want it, our power is so great that whatever we want, we do. There is nothing that can resist before our power. Therefore we have the power to rehabilitate him, to render him more beautiful than before, and to fortify and cement his collapsing house in such a way as to render it stronger than it used to be. And at the blowing breath of our power, shut his thieves and enemies into the darkest abysses. So, as much as man slipped from within our divine will, he did not cease to be our work. And even though he disordered himself, our power, for the decorum of our work, which must be perfect and complete just as we want it, will put with its power a limit to his disorders, to his weaknesses, and will say to him with its empire, enough up to here. Re-enter into the order. Take your place of honor as a work worthy of your Creator. These are prodigies of our omnipotence that it will perform, which he will not have the strength to resist. But without strain, spontaneously, drawn and attracted by a supreme force, by an invincible love. Wasn't redemption wanted by our will, a prodigy of our power and of our love, which knows how to conquer everything, even the most awful ingratitudes, the gravest sins, and requite in love there where ungrateful man offended it the most? If it is about man, of course he will not be able to stand up again, in spite of all the helps of my redemption, because he is not disposed to taking them. Many do not cease to be sinners, weak, smeared with the gravest sins. But if it is about my power, about my love, when the two scales overflow a little bit more, and touch him with the will to conquer him, man shall feel shaken and floored, in such a way that he shall rise again from evil to good, and shall re-enter into our divine will, from which he went out, so as to take his lost inheritance. Do you know where everything lays? Everything is in whether our will wants it, and has decided it with divine decrees. If this is there, everything is done. And this decision is so true that there are facts. You must know that when I came upon earth, while I did the office of Redeemer, at the same time, everything that my holy humanity did enclosed as many acts of my divine will as a deposit to be given to the creature. I had no need of it, because I was the divine will itself. So my humanity acted like a most tender mother. It enclosed within itself as many births from my will, for as many acts as it did, in order to give birth to them, and deliver them onto the lap of the acts of creatures, so as to form in their acts the kingdom of the acts of my Fiat. So it is there, like a mother, with a love that makes her agonize, waiting to give birth to these divine offsprings of hers. The other fact is that I myself taught thee Our Father, so that all would pray for my kingdom to come, so that my will be done on earth as it is in heaven. If it were not to come, teaching such a prayer would have been useless, and useless things I know not how to do. And then the many truths manifested about my divine will. Do they not say in clear notes that its kingdom will come upon earth, not by human work, but by the work of our omnipotence? Everything is possible when we want it. We place as much ease in doing small things as we do in great ones, because all the virtue and power is in our act, not in the good that the act of our power receives. In fact, when I was on earth, since in all my acts ran my power, the touch of my hands, the empire of my voice, and so forth, were all made powerful. And with the same ease with which I called to life the little girl who had died a few hours before, With that same ease, I called to life Lazarus, who had been dead for 4 days, who was already corrupted, and gave off an unbearable stench. I commanded that the bandages be removed from him, and then I called him with the empire of my voice, Lazarus, come out. At my empiring voice, Lazarus was resurrected, the corruption disappeared, the stench ceased, and he came back healthy and hearty as if he had not died. True example of how my power can make the kingdom of my Fiat rise again in the midst of creatures. This is a tangible and sure example of how my power, in spite of the fact that man is corrupted and the stench of his sins infects him more than a cadaver, he can be called a poor one wrapped in bandages, who has need of the divine empire in order to be freed of the bandages of his passions. But if the empire of my power invests him and wants it, his corruption shall have no more life, and he shall rise again healthy and more beautiful than before. Therefore, at the most, one can doubt that my divine will would want it, because they cannot deserve a good so great. But that my power would not be able to do it? Not this, ever. Fiat. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 30, Part 10. Fiat.